Having a dog that is well trained versus one that is not is completely life changing. And I'm not saying that from a pet's parent's point of view. I'm saying that a well trained dog is important for the safety for humans and animals because a well trained dogs live longer, they're healthier, they're happier, they can better handle stressful environments, they deal with anxiety better, and all of this collectively lead to a happier and healthier dog. So this is not just an important topic today about dog training for new pet parents, but is relevant for all dog parents. And we hope that by the end of this conversation, we've inspired you to look at pet training a little differently, to understand what you've done right or wrong for your dog. And now some of you may have engaged with a pet trainer before, it doesn't matter. Hey everybody, welcome to a brand new episode of the Perspectives Podcast. My name is Yenting and I'm the host for this podcast. And I'm very excited to talk to you about our topic today because we have Brandon Liu, who is a certified pet trainer and has won many competitions since 2016, winning first place at the Malaysia National Championships in IGP3. Now, for those of you who don't know what IGP is, I recently learned that IGP is equivalent to the Olympic of dog sports. It is an international sport and a triathlon of 3 phases: tracking, obedience, and protection. Brandon, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. Now, first things first, as the topic suggests, I'm very, very eager to know what are the top 3 mistakes dog owners make when it comes to training our dogs.
I think first we look at the goals that most pet owners want with their dogs. Particularly, is it something to do with obedience? Is it something to do with a trick? Or whatever else that they may have in mind?
Right.
I think goals would be the ones that is very important for a dog owner's perspective per se.
Yeah.
So I think that would be number one. It can be as simple as, I want my dog to not run out the gate at home when my gate's open, right? So is that an obedience thing, or is it something that they want to achieve with their dogs with, for example, in a particular sport, agility, IGP, dancing with dogs or whatnot? So I think it's important that that particular owner decides what they want to do with their dog. Particularly, I mean, in a training perspective, but as an owner's perspective, I think it's companionship, etc. Right? So it really depends.
So say if it's like companionship, how do you start building that bond or trust with your dog?
It's different to many dog owners per se, but I think if we were looking at a system of training, I think the first thing I usually do with my dogs at home, by the time they come home, they'll probably be about 2 months old. I would start with bonding. And how do I bond with a dog? I think that would be a follow-up question per se, right? I think bonding with a dog is not difficult, but it's essential because it's going to be with you for the rest of his life, right? When we bond, we basically hand feed the dog to create some sort of connection.
Hand feed their meals?
Yes.
Right.
So all meals would come from me, right? That is something that I want the dog to know. And that builds trust.
Right.
So bonding and trust is going to give you a long run of whatever you want to do with your dog in future. Because if the dog doesn't have any trust with you in future, it's very hard to communicate that particular behavior that you want from that dog.
So building trust or building bond through hand feeding would be the first step.
And it starts as early as 2 months old.
2 months old.
All the way to probably 6 to 8 months, I think. Yeah. So we just continue building that trust, I would say.
Interesting. Okay, what would be the second mistake?
Would be how and when they know when to stop their training. If you were to continue training over and over and over again, the dog may not understand what you're trying to communicate. So knowing when to stop is important.
Even if they may not have understood your commands?
So if you put this into perspective of, I'm training my dog to not leave the house when the gates are open. So it's a step-by-step process, right? So I can't immediately open the gates, let my dog run out. Okay, that's it.
Right.
Right? That the dog will never understand. So if we were to actually break it down into pieces of puzzles, the first behavior is, okay, I have a leash, my gates are open, my dog can't run out because I have
You're
control.
holding him back.
So I teach him step by step. Of
Right.
course, it's a long process.
Yeah.
But in layman terms, I think the most important part is to break it down into pieces to finalize that picture. Yeah, I think that would be
second.
knowing when to stop is important.
Yeah. Actually, touching upon that, I'd like to know, like you're saying, breaking it down, right? What are your thoughts on some controversial training methods, like punishment-based training methods,
Okay.
or using training tools such as like prong collars?
Based on that remark, I think it's a very subjective remark, but it's also very personal as well. In my perspective, right? What have you just mentioned are tools,
Tools, yes.
right? So a lot of people have a different mindset of what these tools could be used for,
Yeah.
or is it really a punishment to the dog? Now, there's no such thing in this is a very personal thing.
Yeah.
But I guess I could speak on my terms. There's no such thing as pure positive training. I believe in balance, right? There has to be a positive, there has to be a negative.
Right.
Right? If there's too much positive, how are you going to balance that? So, using tools and knowing how to use is very important. Because you would have people who abuse these tools. When you abuse, then the dog's not learning anything and you are just waiting for the next
Yeah.
case that's going to happen.
But I'm asking because like I am against like negative or like punishment based, but at the same time I'm also thinking, how do I make him learn or understand the consequences if he's doing things that are not
So it's about
safe?
reinforcement.
Yeah.
Right? So knowing when to reinforce a positive or a negative behavior
Yeah.
is all about timing. Hence why it's important to know when to stop. So if you're doing too much, the dog doesn't enjoy it, do you continue
Yeah.
or do you stop? So you have to be able to understand your dog. The best trainer is not you sending your dog to a trainer. It's you training your dog.
Yeah.
Learning from the trainer. That's probably the best tip that I could actually state right now.
So wait, back to your question on knowing when to stop. What are some tips that you
Right.
have for pet parents?
So-
like change in behavior, like how do you know when to stop exactly?
As I said, I think the most important thing is your piece of puzzle is that final picture that you want to achieve. Knowing your goals is
Yeah.
important, right? So having each piece of puzzle as a segregated piece of behavior out of that picture is important. Let's have an example. How many behaviors do you know of? Dumbbell retrieve, meaning I'm throwing a dumbbell and my dog is running, picking it up and bringing it back to me. How many behaviors is that? No, that's my final picture.
Whoa. Oh, okay.
Right? So just to retrieve that dumbbell back to me is my final picture. But how many behaviors is that for you as a layman person?
Running to the thing, picking it up, coming back to me and giving it to me. So like 4, I think.
Okay, so for me that's 8.
How?
Right? So there's 8 behaviors,
Huh.
right? First, out of the picture, I won't be throwing the dumbbell, getting my dog to pick up
Right, right.
and come back to me. The first thing I would do is have my dog sit next to me.
See, that's why I'm not a pet
Right.
trainer.
Right? So the first step is just sit. He doesn't even know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
As long as he sits and he's very clear of sitting down, I'm rewarding him, I'm teaching him, understanding that all he has to do is sit. The next behavior is I'm throwing the dumbbell, but he cannot run. He still has to sit next to me.
Okay.
There's a second behavior. He sees a dumbbell, he can't run, but he just has to, because he has to wait for me to say
For your
bring,
command,
right?
yeah.
Next, third behavior,
Yeah.
running to the dumbbell, but not just happily galloping, slowly running to the dumbbell. I want speed. How are we going to get that? That's the third behavior, speed, right? Fourth behavior, picking it up,
Yeah.
right? How do you teach that? That's another behavior. Fifth behavior, coming back to me at speed, also another behavior. Sitting down in front of me, also another behavior. 6. Seventh, releasing that toy, right? Releasing, taking it out of
Yeah.
his mouth is another behavior.
Yep.
8 behavior, finishing the position.
Coming back.
So there's 8 behaviors.
Okay.
So all these 8 pieces of puzzles
Right.
is not trained in one go. I can't form that puzzle yet. Until he understands puzzle 1 to puzzle 3, okay, we start slowly. So then When he understands puzzle 1, great, he's clear, stop.
Right.
Right? Of course, if it's a new behavior, it may take time, right? Because I have to make sure that he understands sit first. Well, what's the point of me sitting down? What do I get for sitting down? But when he's very clear of these pieces of puzzles, he will give me a discount. I don't need to reward every time. But
Right.
at the end of every exercise, there is a jackpot. But he just doesn't know when,
Okay.
right? So this is super important for training any behavior effectively. Again, there's so many ways to roam. For us, it's important that we know what we want to achieve and without asking too much, because the next day your dog would want to do more, right? Because he's motivated.
Okay. Third mistake.
Third mistake would be not being repetitive. So
Tell us more.
being repetitive is important because it solidifies the behavior. Bear in mind that you have to know what your goals are. You have to know when to stop, right? Being repetitive is also very closely related, okay? Because if I'm just doing it 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, it's not enough for a dog to understand what you're trying to communicate, right? So sit. Everyone tries to teach a dog to sit.
Yeah.
But how many times can you tell your dog to sit at one go? Right? If I was to say sit 10 times, out of 10 times, how many dogs will sit? Most dogs will sit 1, 2, 3 at most.
They're
and then
done. Yeah. yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
So would he be motivated on the 4th or 5th time?
Probably not.
Not, right?
Definitely not my dog.
So this is the importance of repetition. But the repetition comes with when the reward becomes unpredictable.
Okay. What do you mean?
The first time, I may reward him. Let's put it into layman terms. I give you 1 ringgit. Oh, great, happy. I'm happy. Second time, 10 ringgit. Oh, wow. Third time, 3 ringgit. Hey, but my 4th time, I don't know how much I'm going to get.
Right.
But will I still do it? I may get 50.
Yeah.
I may get 100. I may get 1. I don't know. So in the ability for us to manipulate the dog a little bit, to understand, hey, just do the behavior, you'll get
It
a
will
reward.
come. Okay.
But I don't know how much. So if his behavior was very good, like sit, he sat down very fast, he did it very well, I may reward him 100. Great. Now, then the 11th time, tell him to sit. Will he do it again? This is the importance of repetition. Having that clerical approach of the unpredictable rewards. So the dog will always continue to do something that you've asked him to do.
Yeah. What are your advice for? Because I have a lot of friends who are also pet parents and are like probably overwhelmed and like frustrated with training their dogs. Especially the first couple of months, right? It's hard. What would your advice be for pet parents who are overwhelmed?
Based on experience as well, that you get frustrated, right? You know, a dog also has an attention span, right? Where if the dog owner or the trainer is not patient enough to know when that period is
Yeah.
to begin and to stop,
Yes.
both of you guys are going to get frustrated, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So knowing when to stop is key, but you have to find what motivates your dog. Is it food? Is it toys? Or is it you? Right? So balance there is also very important. So in the case of a dog that gets frustrated, gets very bored, doesn't learn, the owner is going to give up. Right? But that's why it's important that the dog owner knows what and when to teach that particular exercise, and when do I stop?
yeah.
How do you teach your dog to sit, right? If you were to, most owners, I'm a victim of this as well, was that we would take out the food, show the food, mum, here's the food, force the dog to sit, pressing him down until he sits, reward.
Correct.
That's a very bad
Well, I thought
way
that's
to
the
train,
way. Yeah, that's
right?
what I did. And guilty of it.
So in that kind of situation,
Yeah.
what happens when you don't have the food and you tell your dog to sit?
They won't. They probably won't sit.
So
yeah.
this is what we call classical conditioning, right?
Okay, tell us
So
more.
this is a little bit on dog psychology, right? So I don't know if you heard of the Pavlov theory,
No.
right? So he was a psychologist.
Okay.
What he had was a dog in the cage, church bell rings, he brings food out. He would do this over and over and over again.
Okay.
Dog in the cage, bell rings, food comes out.
Okay.
So one time, the dog in the cage, bell rings, but the food wasn't out. What did the dog do? He started to salivate, right? Because he linked
He's waiting
and
for it. He knows.
associated
Yeah.
the bell with food,
Right.
right? So this is classical conditioning. This is essentially what dog owners, generic dog owners would do. Bring the food out. Mum, the dog already knows. Oh, food is out. I need to do something. Oh, sit. He associates that. Sit comes with a reward. But what if you don't have the food anymore? You don't have the bag that makes noises and stuff, and then the dog doesn't want to come out, doesn't want to sit. It's not effective. In sort of a system that we've sort of used is that we use classical conditioning through training of a behavior by associating.
To your third mistake on not being repetitive enough, can you give us a timeline? Or I guess it depends on the different behavior they're trying to solidify, right? But how long does it take to be repetitive enough?
Do you think dog training requires a lot of time?
Yeah, I think so.
How much
as a
time?
pet parent.
Right.
Okay, to be honest, I think I only spent a lot of time in the first couple of years. And then later on, it's just like as and when we want to teach him like new tricks and stuff.
Okay.
That, yeah, but probably I would say like a new trick, maybe like a week.
Fair enough. Fair
Yeah,
enough.
around a
But if we're looking at how much time do we actually really need
Yeah.
with the dog, not more than 15 minutes to train
A day.
a day, right? Now, this happens with meal times. I'm not going to separate that meal time and use treats
Oh,
to train a new behavior,
shit, that's what I do.
right?
Yeah.
So I would particularly use his meals to train.
So every meal time
Correct.
is an opportunity to train.
Correct.
And once you're done with the meal,
Done.
done with
Right?
training.
This is when we know when to stop as well. I could be teaching something new. As long as he gets it, he understands what I've been trying to teach him during that meal time. It could have been 2 minutes. So what I do with the rest of the food, give it to him as a jackpot. Now, what do you think is going to happen in the next meal time?
He'll be probably looking forward to it.
Immediately,
and-
he'll be offering that behavior. He'll be thinking, "Oh, I need to do this. I want to do this."
So he probably does all that thing before
Yeah. So
he,
I mean,
so cute.
of course, with your conditioning and commands, right?
Yeah.
Looking at that, it's important to know
Yeah.
how long you should be spending, not overly spending that time, and repeating over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Right.
Really, really cool to learn the ropes on how to train a dog. And I think what we talked a lot about is not just like training, but a lot of like dog psychology that you mentioned. And this has already been mind-blowing for me so far. I think to recap, the 3 mistakes that we talked about are: number 1, the first mistake is not understanding what your end goal is. You have to understand what you
I
want.
think being clear.
Yeah, being clear of
Yeah.
like what you want,
And
what's the
objective.
purpose
Yeah,
of,
yeah,
of,
yeah.
of your dog,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Number 2, knowing when to stop training. And number 3 is not being repetitive enough to kind of solidify
Yep.
the behavior. Now, I want to open up the conversation a little bit more to touch on different types of topics that are relevant to dog parents. You know, there's a saying that goes, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. What do you think about that?
I don't believe that.
So you can
So
teach.
you can, but it will just take time. For dogs who are of age, right, learning something new will take time because they've developed so many habits.
So
good
they
or
have to
bad.
kind of like unlearn it.
Yeah.
And
And,
then-
then go back to a system that allows them to understand what you are trying to convey, that message or that behavior.
So maybe like for a new dog or young dog, you take like a couple of weeks. For an older one, it'd
Yeah.
probably be like a couple of months. But it is possible.
Possible.
It is
For sure,
possible.
100%.
Interesting.
Knowing what you want
Yes.
is also is important
Yeah.
to say.
Can you tell us a little bit more about leash training?
In
Like
what
on
way?
and off leash.
I personally have a black and white rule. So when my dogs are on leash, the white rule is that you can do whatever you want. You can pull me, you can drag me, you can do anything. You can bite the leash, you can do anything because I still have control. But when the moment I take off the leash, that's where the black rule comes in. Whatever I say must go.
Okay.
If I say come, you must come back. Or else there's a consequence. For me, it's important that my dog understands what it means to be on leash and what it means to be off leash. You have freedom,
Yeah.
both ends,
Yeah.
whether you're on or you're off. But when you're on, I have control of you. When you're off, I have mental control of you.
How do you get there?
That comes with foundation, right? So again, coming back to bonding, coming back to building trust. My dog has so much trust with me, which is why it's important. So I would never chase my dog to do a particular behavior. So what I've noticed as well, I think it's especially in Desapa, is if your dog runs off leash,
Yeah.
it's usually you'll have owners chase the dog and the dog just continues running. Hey, chasing? Let's go, right? He would treat it as a game.
Yeah.
And that's the first step of what the dog will understand for life. It's a game. I will
Right.
try to escape and run away. Whatever you do, try chase me. And I would never do that with my dogs. If he runs, he goes that way, I will walk that side. Because he would stop and he would look, hey, where are you going? And as he comes back, I would reward.
Right.
Because I'm not going to chase you. You can run, right? I will call. If you don't come, okay, then too bad. But he must learn that I will never chase him and spit food out for him.
And how does he learn that? Again, it's through
Through
that.
foundation.
The foundation,
right?
which
is
means
your bonding.
bonding, which is through like pure playing
Yep.
and like
hand feeding, knowing how to
hand
play.
feeding his
Yep.
food, and then comes the classical conditioning and like forming that piece of puzzle, puzzle by puzzle.
It's a very step-by-step process,
Yeah,
which gets you effectiveness, builds you a lot of trust.
yeah,
You're never going to chase your dog, tell him what to do. You can do this at a distance, right? I can tell my dog 100 meters away, sit down, stand, come. All this without having to pray, please sit, please sit. Just shout, one time.
yeah.
He would do it.
Because it's just constantly like waiting and looking out for you
Yep.
to give.
He's always
your
asking
command.
what is next.
So he wants to be.
Yeah.
He wants to receive commands,
Yes,
basically.
yes.
Interesting.
So I guess that could be a very breed specific thing.
Yes.
Right? Because I have working dogs, right? So they always want to please, right? As opposed to maybe I have a Shih Tzu
right.
who okay. Oh,
Yeah,
what
I
do
have a
do?
Shih Tzu. I know he trains me.
Yeah.
I know we were talking about that. How do you think a dog feels when they are so in sync with their owner? Because you were saying like how you both are like you work so well together. How do you think your dog actually feels?
Happy. I think it's because of how I'm able to communicate with him, right? He understands what I want and I understand what he needs. It's totally different, right? In regards to knowing what I want and what he needs. Essentially, what does he need? Food.
That's all,
Right?
right? Yeah.
That's number one.
That's number one, yeah.
Number two, TLC, right? Some love, some care, right? Some fun. That's essentially what they want and need. For me, could be, I just want an obedient dog. I want a companion. I want someone to play with.
Yeah.
Right? When you have that very clear, even from the get-go of having your puppy or whatnot, I think your dog would be able to understand you very clearly.
Yeah.
If you don't spend enough time, it doesn't really matter. But as long as your dog knows what you want, right?
How do you train dogs that are not motivated by food or treats?
Generically speaking, I can't speak on all dogs, but most dogs are either motivated by food or by toys. If not, by you, right?
By the owner
By
themselves.
the owner. But generally speaking, most dogs are very motivated by food because it's a survivability, what they need to survive, I believe. So without that, what else can they be motivated by, right? It's by fun. So especially a breed like mine, I have a
What
Belgian
breed do you
Shepherd,
have? Yeah.
right? So Belgian Shepherds, they are super motivated. They are hyperactive. Most times, if there's food on the table, they would rather choose the toy because they want to have fun, right? They love biting. They love running. They love doing so many things. So I have to teach that behavior of exchanging that toy with food. Most dog owners, when they find out that their dog does not like a particular food, what would they do?
Oh my gosh. I feel like you're putting me into all sorts of trouble here. Well, I pamper my dog a lot, so I will
Right.
be like buying all sorts of food and trying to feed him with
Right.
and trying to see what he likes. Yeah.
So essentially, your dog has been training you.
Definitely.
Right?
He's a great trainer.
As an example,
Yeah.
purely example. Today, my dog's eating chicken. He eats it for a week. Bored of it. Second week, I buy chicken again. He's not going to eat. He doesn't want to eat.
Yeah.
Oh shit, my dog's not eating. What do? I go buy Wagyu steak. Give it to my dog.
Who's guilty
Oh,
of that?
happy. Great.
Yeah.
He eats again.
Yep.
1 month later, do you think he'll continue with eating Wagyu steak again?
Probably
No.
not, yeah.
Because what he's essentially done is trained you. Hey, I know if I don't eat,
He's
gonna get
he's
something
putting
else.
the classical conditioning on,
Yes.
on the owner.
another
Yeah.
example. Oh, my dog doesn't eat. Why? Is it because you're working, you leave food at home, in a full bowl, you always leave a bowl of dog food at home? He can eat and access it any time of the day.
Oh, scarcity.
So why is my dog not motivated by food? Because there's food everywhere for him. He can eat
Right.
anytime, anywhere, any place. Then these owners will start asking, oh, my dog doesn't like to eat, doesn't like... Well, of course, because there's food everywhere for him.
Correct.
So if you were able to use this to our advantage to train that behavior is, hey, the only time you're going to get food is with me. The only time you get to play is with me. So there's no toys lying on the floor.
It can't be so
It
widely
can't be
available.
so accessible for
Right.
him. The only times you get to use this or play with it is when I'm around. What do you think your dog's going to do when he sees you coming back from work?
Very excited because he knows it's
He's
food
going to
time.
want to do something
toy,
with
yeah.
you, right? And that's essentially what they want, is to see you, because behind you there's food, there's toys, there's whatever I can get. And I'm happy I can spend time, I can chill, I can play, I can do whatever I want. All I have to do is just sit down, stand, oh, great, cool, and I get whatever I need. Finding that motivation is important.
So it really all goes back to the pet parents themselves.
Oh yeah,
On
it's never the
understanding.
dog's fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed. We touched upon choosing a dog that's right for you earlier, right? Like understanding the purpose of your dog. When it comes to choosing a dog, here's a controversial question for you. What is your stance when it comes to breeding?
Ooh, I knew this question. So, I'm not against breeding,
Okay.
nor am I against adopting. But
Okay.
there has to be a particular reason for what I want this dog for. Is it for my family? Is it for my child? Is it for a hobby, a sport, or guarding my house? What do you think the chances of having a mongrel guarding your house versus having a Rottweiler, for example? Total difference, right?
Yeah.
Because it comes with genetic play.
Yeah.
It comes with a bunch of reasons that I can't even answer. Breeding, for me, there has to be ethical breeding.
Okay, what do you
Right.
mean by that?
Ethical breeding has to mean in the sense of what's the purpose. As an example, German Shepherd. In history, long history, German Shepherd is probably the most widely bred dogs in the entire world.
Okay.
Right? I can't speak on it so detailed, but I believe most times that people would breed from a working line to a show line, different blood genetics, whatever, to create one puppy or a few puppies or whatnot. So this has just been going down genetics bloodline over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So it's overly populated. Now look at Belgian Shepherds, for example, which is not so popular, so the history isn't so long. They are more specifically bred for a particular reason. This becomes a genetic play where if I had a male dog with a particular character, genes, bloodline, or whatnot, to breed with a particular female with a particular genetic bloodline in hopes of science to create
Your ideal.
an ideal
make of, yeah.
It starts from there, but the ethical side of it is how often are you going to do this? Are you going to do this every time the cycle comes? And what are you feeding? Are you giving it exercise? Are you giving it the love and care it needs? So I think it's important to understand that before you find that puppy that you look for, right? So even if I was looking for a poodle, am I going to find a poodle from anywhere?
Yeah.
Probably not, but I would probably find from an ethical breeder that I know of that treats his dogs very well.
So to identify whether they're an ethical breeder or not, you would need to
Get to know the person.
really, yeah.
Right? So it's not just, I found a breeder from an ad.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the best way. It's better that we find from someone that we know of
Yeah.
that breeds that particular breed that I'm looking for.
Well, personally, I'm against breeding. Especially if you're trying to get a dog for like aesthetic or appearance reasons. I just feel like, guys, there's just so many dogs out there that need our help. So it's better to just like adopt one if
Yeah.
you're looking for one. But again, I think to your point as well, understanding the purpose and what is the goal, right? So
Yeah.
like what you were saying. If we can, let's do our part to try and adopt and help more dogs out there. Let's talk about your dog. Can you share with us your experience with Barros, I
Okay.
believe his name,
Yep.
and how is it like winning a
It's
game?
not that big of a deal. Yeah.
Okay, tell us more.
Yeah. I started my dog training journey
Yeah.
in 2013. But I've always loved dogs, right?
Okay.
As a kid.
You started off as a passion, a hobby, right?
Yeah, I
So-
mean, I would beg my parents to buy me a dog. So what they would do is buy me a dog encyclopedia of, the moment I could flip a particular page, I would know what breed that is.
Yeah.
That was sort of the passion that grew as a child. And watching all those police dog shows and all
Yeah.
that stuff. So, but I've never found out about IGP, right? Until 2003, 2006, so around there, during that period. So I was watching WUSV, which is the German Shepherd breed-specific IGP sport.
Okay.
So it's only for German Shepherds.
Okay.
And that motivated me. I was like, whoa, I didn't know dogs could do that, right? Then, of course...
What were they doing? Yeah.
Right? So they were doing tracking, obedience, and protection. So have a watch. I think it's very interesting. So a friend of mine actually called me and said, hey, we should need to go to Ipoh. There's a training over there. At that time, I was still a student. I didn't have license to drive all the way to Ipoh as I do. It's crazy, man. I'm not going to Ipoh just to train a dog, right? Following year, 2013, I was like, okay, fine, let's go. So that was when my training took off. Really started to enjoy what it really means. Because it's not just for dogs. I felt it's like a camaraderie of, hey, we all have the same passion, right? We
so
enjoy,
a bunch of you come together and...
together, train, speak of the dogs, learn from each other. What I enjoyed the most was actually the dog psychology part of it, which actually relates a lot to human psychology as well. That started off. And so Barros came into my life in 2014.
2014. So he
so
is
before
10.
Barros, I had another dog as well.
Okay.
So I had a very specific goal with Barros.
Okay.
Is that I wanted to achieve IGP3, which is a title. So it usually starts from BH, which is an obedience test. And then you have IGP1, IGP2, IGP3.
Okay.
So IGP3 is the highest.
Right.
So that was my goal. I just want to train my dog from zero, from nothing, to achieving the highest level. And I know it would take a journey, right? Because it's not overnight. So 3 years, every day, I will be training my dog for 15 minutes.
Okay.
Every day. So I entered in small little competitions from MKA. They had the Malaysian Kennel Association would organize obedience trials. So I would not going in there wanting to win or anything like that. It was just something for myself that, let's just test my training to see if it works on ground, right? In a competition setting. So as I entered, I started winning, getting 99 out of 100 points. And I was like, whoa, okay, cool. But did I really think it was 99? No, not really, right? Because I would ask for more from my dog. But it was an opportunity to understand what I needed to train that I thought was not great.
Okay.
Right? So then I would go back to the drawing board. Okay, this is how we should fix whatever behavior was not right, not so great. So entered a few more. Then started doing BH, which is the obedience test. It's like a passport to start with IGP. Did that, passed it, went through IGP all the way to IGP3, and then we started doing competitions. So my goal for Barros was actually to compete in world championships. But because of COVID and all that, now he's too old. I could not partake in that with him. So yeah, that's how it began.
Wow, what a journey! So 3 years of non-stop training.
I would say 3
every
to
day.
5 years is really dedication.
Yeah.
Training.
What's your favorite memory of you and Barros?
Oh, he would do a lot of things to please me. I mean, it's very hard for me to share it, but if I was to give you an example, is that it's his drive and his passion towards me is very clear. So the communication that I have with him, he's just ready to go. And I believe in an instant, he can protect me, he can do anything at any time. So I think it's a great companion, not just for sports, but as a dog.
I think the bond that you guys have is...
it's very strong.
Okay, last question. But first, I'd like to thank you for sharing all of these new perspectives today with our audience. Here's a question for you. What is one perspective that has changed your life?
How dog psychology is closely linked with the human behavior.
Okay, so I know you just had a baby. Are you implementing all?
So it's about association, right? All these behaviors with a lot of psychologists, right? I'm not a psychologist, but having learnt that what I've trained my dogs with, it's not 100% the same way or the same method, but it's very closely linked. So you have Pavlov theories, you have Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So all these are psychologists thinking, which is very close to dogs and humans. It's all about what we need and what we want. That perspective of what my dog has technically taught me is to be patient. Being patient is
key to
get you a long
everything.
way.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing
Thank
all
you
of
so
this
much for having me.
information. Yeah, and thank you for helping us understand how pet parents can better train their dogs. And I think today what I've learned definitely is beyond just like pet training, right? Beyond just like sit and like basic commands, but thinking more in depth in terms of the purpose, how to choose your dog, what are they really meant to do, how do I develop stronger bonds with them. It is actually a lot about dog psychology, as we had mentioned. It's about making sense of and understanding how they think, how they feel, how they respond, and then using that for effective training, right? And effective pet training can be life-changing because a well-trained dog, obviously they work out more, they eat better, they're just safer, so they live longer as well. A well-trained dog actually has a stronger bond between the dog and the owner themselves, which leads to a happy and fulfilled dog. And I think you also talked about it's not how fast you train a dog, it's all about the consistency. 15 minutes a day, every single day for 3 years, right? You were saying. So consistency is really important. You start by building that bond and trust through like play and then classical conditioning. Knowing when to stop and how to reinforce that good behavior is important. And be repetitive if you want the behavior to stick. My mission here is to show up, to inspire and empower you with new perspectives, to hopefully give you new resources and strategies that you need to create a healthier and happier pet. And as always, do your own research because you know your pet best. Signing off, see you in the next episode. Thank you.